Hello, how you doing? I apologize for the delay on this. I was overwhelmed by all of these different things going on, and I forgot and it pushed it back a day, and I apologize. So, be that as it may, I think your concept is really cool, and I bet there's a lot of stuff going on all over the world. And it reminded me of something back in I forget which war it was. But what towns would do when they're like, "Hey, we didn't, we're not part of the war. We're not being defended. We're neutral." The term was open town. So for what it's worth, I don't know if it's related, but it's kind of like a neutral status. So be that as it may, first place I would say is let's go to Google because open border, does it have other names? Is there related terms? Are there people that are related to this? Let's find out. If you do, if you just did open border, um, sometimes it's going to suggest other things. Oh, and there's human geography. Ooh, might give us like the names of databases or disciplines to try. I didn't think of that. Open border examples, blah, blah, blah. What you can do in Google, oh, and I put it in quote marks so the words would stick together. That works in most databases too. But I want to find it in the context of something. So if I want to look at like open border, and then if I put the colon there, did you see that? I call that a contextual search, which means it's going to look in all the documents and emphasize open border, and then it's going to look for those with debate. And this will be like debate societies and things like that. But this is where you can find some of the pro and con. And if you've already found a lot of the pro and con, you can validate this. So there'd be like pop magazines, like the New Yorker. There's Wikipedia. Oh, I didn't think about migration as a keyword. So you were looking at some related terms, so that might be good. And here's some opinionated stuff, which is good because it'll polarize into a position. So this is the Socialist Forum. You could also do, whoops, open border, and in the context of open border, who's doing policy? It looks like it's more of that. Looks like we can. Looks like the governor of Florida, who's not a lightning rod at all, says reckless open border policies led to murders. Um, so I think there'll be lots of rhetoric to work with. And it looks like open border is a good keyword. So that's the first test is like, are there related terms that we should know about, or is this solid by itself? That's pretty good. So let's try our open border here. If you go to the library catalog, think of it as like a Target, Walmart, 7-Eleven even, where it has little bits of everything. It's not comprehensive, but they have a little bit of everything. And if you go into catalogs, so you could go specifically to articles, but let's see if there's books on it too. If you go to catalog, and I'm going to show you some ways of brainstorming and looking for more ideas if you wanted people that would talk about it more than just like what do they call that? Like a BuzzFeed sort of a thing. Just like sound bites. That was the word that I was looking for. Where they're not really saying anything. If we go into the catalog, we can find more sources where they're going in depth, giving examples. And it's more a rational, evidence based debate, even if they are polarized on one side. And you can find articles in here too. It looks like it's choking on something. Oh, there we go. So 64,000 results. Oh, look at that. There's an open border agreement to a specific commodity, meat and poultry. Oh, and that goes back to 1990. Oh, so here's the one thing is open border policies can affect very finite things. So you could have an open border policy on migration, but not trade. I didn't know that. I kind of assumed it was just like open for everybody, which makes sense that it's more granular. So here you can grab peer-reviewed journals. I want to show you this one trick though, because this is annoying because it's going to go back to 17. Does it really go back that far? Let's go to our current era. So maybe after the last president was elected. And let's see if we can modernize our discourse. So this obviously has been talked about for a long time. Look at that. There's still 32,000 results. How do we get through that? Let me show you some more. You can narrow down to peer-reviewed journals. You can narrow down to books, or fabulously book chapters are really good. They count as a scholarly article, but typically they're a little more refined than the scholarly article. Or maybe they're like a little more generic. But you can see, where's our subject? Ah, here we go. If you go to subject, these are the main subjects en masse of those 32,000 things. So you can see there's political figures, there is particular, those facets for the open borders. Maybe you could go into this, maybe you could go into this. There's your economic, there's your political. All sorts of, that's really good. So you could go into any one of these categories, and you could see things on open border about that. And oh, there's just one, and there's only one for food. I mean, food's controlled by like tariffs and things like that. So be that as it may, all you'd have to do is click on political aspects and apply filters, and then you're in that political discipline. And I would say cast around and look for ideas. Since there's so much written on this, we may have to narrow this down, and I have ways of narrowing it down further in databases. And you might have to add "and United States," because here we have Eritrea and Ethiopia and Germany and things like that. So what do we do next? So that's one way of casting around, looking for ideas. Next one is library databases. And right here is library databases. And for library databases, you can go in, if you know the name of a database. A lot of people really adore Academic Search Ultimate, which is under A. But you can go in by discipline. So let's go in. I have my list here. Let's look at, so we were looking at, oh, you know what? I wrote down your keywords too. Open borders and policy, United States and border, and here we have humanitarian. Let's try doing the humanitarian bit. So it's less about the politics, and it's more about society and things like that. Let's see what we get. You could go under economics, you could go under political science. So there's econ database, there's political science. And how these work, I'll go to sociology, which is like the study of all societies and things like that. When you go to any one of these major categories, whoever the librarian is for that category, I'm the one for sociology, I'll put my favorite database at the top in yellow. So you don't need to know which database, just go for the one highlighted in yellow. So try political science, I think that's worldwide political abstracts. Let's go into sociological and try that humanitarian. These are definitely going to be a lot more scholarly. Then the catalog has kind of got newspapers and magazines mixed in. Let's go to advanced search. Okay, so all the sociologists studying gender or culture or community outcomes or crime, all of those different things, this shows up here. And there's some political science, there's some policy. But what we can do is, instead of searching for open border just everywhere, we want, since we know there's like tens of thousands of articles, let's say, you know, we could look in the abstract so we know that it's the main point of the article, but just for fun, let's go to the document title, and that might narrow it down a lot more. And you could add keywords like, oh, let's do all of them. Humanitarian, economic, geopolitical. Humanitarian or political or economic. Did I spell that right? Okay. And we could just say, okay, we just want somewhere in the abstract, we want this to be the main thing. And you can click on this peer reviewed now or later. I'll show you the later. Okay, we're going into all of sociology. I feel like this is where you pull the handle. There's only two. This is where you pull the handle on the slot machine in Las Vegas. Sometimes it's really, really, really narrow, and sometimes you get way too many. Let's go back. Oh, and here you can see how it nailed it down like that. So let's take that second one out. Let's take this search out altogether and just look in sociology for the concept of open border. Oh, it doubled my search results. So this database is a dud. Here you can see there's immigration policy. So maybe you could go off of those different facets of like commodities and things that go through the border. So if it was immigration that you studied, that would be the facet that you were looking at. And typically there's like translated versions, but a lot of scholars in South America, so the language is primarily Spanish and Portuguese. There's a lot of those articles coming through, and you can translate them in Google Translate. But the scholarship is really big in the last 10 years in South America. It's really cool to see that happen. All over the world, that's happening. Okay, so sociological abstracts was a solid dud. Let's go to public policy. I'll let you look at the business. Go to that pull down and look at business. Go to that pull down and look at worldwide political science abstracts, or poli-sci. What do you do if you know the name of a database? You can go in by the letter P or whatever. And I know that the best public policy database is called PAIS. And there's no public policy pull down menu thing, so we'll just have to write that one down. So instead of in the title, let's look in the title again. It pulled my search over from the other one. So this whole TI and in the brackets and all that, that's the advanced search for encoding for this particular style of database. If that doesn't make sense, just always go to advanced search. I often do. Oh, there's only 3. How interesting. Well, let's go. So dig around in those databases. This is what you have to deal with. It's cool that there's not a lot in scholarship, because that means that maybe there's another way of accessing it. And I'm going to show you that last one. And maybe it's narrowing it down too much to have it in the title. But if you go to Scopus, this is like the library catalog where it's most of the disciplines and it's only a little of everything. But Scopus, instead of just having magazines and newspapers and things like that, this is the other end, where this is like all scholarly, all high impact, high value scholarship, well-regarded things. So this is like, what's the opposite of 7-Eleven? It's like luxury 7-Eleven? I don't know. Maybe this is Nordstrom versus Target. But this is all scholarly. This is the great stuff. So let's try our open border. Open border. Oh, you know what? I want to try one more thing. If we don't know if it's open border or open borders, you can put a star, and it'll catch all the iterations of that. Open border or open borders. And let's look at everything. Maybe I was being too hasty looking in the title. Oh, this is a little better. Oh, maybe it's part of a policy program. So the open border isn't studied per se, but maybe it's part of an element of a policy. Let's go back and see if it's just in the abstract. I don't want to get a bunch of stuff where it's just mentioned once. Oh, and here you can add search fields and add those things as well. But let's do just searching in the abstract. So it doesn't have to be in the title, but it has to be in the abstract. Oh, that didn't do too bad. Okay, so here's the cool thing about this database. You can, ethics, fantastic. You can do the date limitation. You can go under disciplines and narrow it down. But here's the magical thing that this one does. And again, these are mostly scholarly, if not all, is you can go in and you can sort by the number of times each one has been cited. So this cited by highest. What that means is if somebody publishes an article that changes the way that people think, then they're going to cite that article when they publish something. That's called impact. And some of them are not relevant. So the hydrogen bond, but here we go, the case for open borders. Even though this was published in 1987, this was so important that these 651 articles couldn't be published. They couldn't exist unless they used the evidence and the paradigms of this one. Isn't that cool? So maybe this is the best way to go rather than those other databases. How do you find out what the most impactful things in the last few years have been? Oh, by the way, how do you get that article? Whenever you see this Find It button, this will send you back to the library catalog and it'll open up the database for you that it shows up in. Scopus doesn't have full text, and some of our databases don't have full text, and so it has to refer you someplace else. So under the yellow bar, the full text link will show up, and it should dump you right into the article. If it doesn't, send me the citation. I'll help you track it down. Don't fret if you can't find something right off the bat. That's my job. That's a tangled web. This one might be really good. I mean, since it's the fundamental one. So there's your article. But what do we do? So there's a couple things we can do. One, how do I find the articles that this influenced? You can just click on this. And all 651 are there, and you can sort those by number of times cited. So you can sort that by number of times cited, or you can see which ones have been written in the last few years. Populism shows up in here. What do you do if you thought your search was good and you just wanted to see what the greatest hits of the last 5 years have been? It will, I can never tell. My computer's overheating from all of this. But you can limit and you can view more years too. You can limit to that. So let's see what the greatest hits on open border or borders in the abstract is in the last 5 years. And those will be sorted by impact as well. Cosmopolitan parochial divide. So there's study from the Netherlands. Some of these things ignore because they might be using the same terminology, open borders. So heat transfer, open border organization culture. Oh, that's like a global freedom. Lots of cool stuff in here. So your job is to dig around and let me know how it goes. And if I can help you track down stuff, or if you want me to repeat or support a different direction for a search. It seems like you're on track to finding too much stuff, and so your job will be to narrow it down. And it sounds like it's well written, and I think you're in good shape. So let me know how it goes, and ta-ta, have a lovely weekend.